Ciao a tutti! Welcome to Venite a Mangiare. My name is Allegra. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, and today I'm going to be sharing my recipe for chocolate orange biscotti. This recipe is an excellent treat to add to your favorite cup of coffee or tea. It tastes and looks amazing, and I'm really excited to share it with you. Now, I'm making this biscotti with chocolate and orange because I think that's a super underrated combination. It's super good. But if that's not really you, feel free to make this recipe your own. You can easily substitute any type of fruit, other type of chocolate or nuts, whatever you want, you do you. Make it something that you can enjoy. Now, in Italian, biscotti translates to twice baked, which is exactly how biscotti are typically made. You put them in the oven once to cook the dough, and then you let them cool, and then you slice them up and you bake them again to give them those nice crisp flavor and texture that we typically think of when we think of biscotti. So to start off, I'm going to do a quick run through of what the recipe is and how to put this together. Then afterwards, stick around and we can talk a little bit about what makes this recipe not only delicious, but also nutritious. So without further ado, let's get started.
For this recipe, you will need 2 cups of almond flour, a 1/3 cup of coconut sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 large eggs, 2 tablespoons of melted coconut oil, 1 tablespoon of orange zest, and 4 ounces of dark chocolate. Start by preheating your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Prepare the chocolate by breaking it into small pieces. In a large bowl, add the almond flour, coconut sugar, and baking powder. Mix until homogeneous and set aside. In a small bowl, crack 2 eggs and add your melted coconut oil and vanilla extract. Mix until homogeneous. Bring back those dry ingredients and add the wet to the dry. Combine to form a dough. Once the dough has formed, add orange zest and chocolate chunks. Mix until well blended. Grab a baking sheet and line with parchment paper. Transfer the dough to the baking sheet and form a wide, flattened long out of the dough. It should be around 3/4 of an inch tall, 4 inches wide, and about 7.5 inches long. Bake the dough for 30 minutes. Once it's done, allow the loaf to cool for 45 minutes to an hour so that it gets to room temperature. This will allow it to firm. Towards the end of the cooling process, preheat the oven to 300 degrees. Use a sharp knife to carefully slice the loaf into individual biscotti, about 1/2 inch thick. Arrange the biscotti in 2 layers on the baking sheet, and be careful because the biscotti will be fragile. Bake biscotti for another 10 to 15 minutes. Remove from the oven and carefully flip each biscotto to the other side. Bake for another 10 minutes or until golden brown. Once this is done, allow the biscotti to cool.
Okay, so now the biscotti are out of the oven and we're gonna let them cool, and in the meantime we can talk nutrition. So almond flour is really the base of this recipe. Almond flour is made from ground almonds, of course. The process of making almond flour consists of blanching the almonds in a boiling water to remove the skins. Those then, skinless almonds if you will, are then ground and sifted into a fine flour, making almond flour. This process differs from almond meal, which doesn't undergo the same blanching process as almond flour. To make almond meal, you take the whole almond with the skin still intact and grind that into a coarser flour. When looking at the nutrition profile of almond flour, it is quite nutritionally dense. 1 ounce of almond flour provides around 15 grams of fat. 9 of those grams are heart-healthy monounsaturated fats. You can also find 160 calories, 6 grams of protein, 6 grams of carbohydrate, and 35% of the reference daily intake value of vitamin E. The reference daily intake, or the RDI, is basically a measure of the needs of a certain nutrient to meet 97% of the general population's needs. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin that also plays a very important role as an antioxidant. Antioxidants play an important role in our body because they reduce harmful molecules called free radicals. Free radicals can cause oxidative stress on the cells in our body. This can lead to the development of certain diseases such as heart disease and cancer. In fact, there are many studies that have been done that suggest that a higher vitamin E intake has been associated with decreased risk of Alzheimer's and heart disease. In addition to its nutrient-rich profile, almond flour also provides a natural sweetness to your baked goods and can provide it with a really tasty texture, which is one of the reasons why these biscotti are so tasty. So we used coconut sugar as the main source of sweetness in this recipe. Coconut sugar is made from the saps of the flower buds on a coconut palm tree. It does not come from coconuts as many think. The sap is then boiled over heat, which removes the water from the sap, leaving behind coconut sugar. Now, coconut sugar isn't necessarily known for being a super nutritionally dense superfood that's going to drastically change the nutrition profile of whatever you're making. With that being said, coconut sugar does offer a few more benefits compared to its other sugar counterparts. Coconut sugar does have a slightly lower glycemic index compared to regular table sugar. This means that coconut sugar won't raise your blood sugar as high as regular table sugar. Also, common sweeteners such as granulated cane sugar and high fructose corn syrup undergo a lot of processing, which as a result strips them from many of their nutrients. Coconut sugar, on the other hand, does not undergo the same amount of processing that granulated cane sugar or high fructose corn syrup undergoes, and therefore isn't stripped of as many of its nutrients. But you would need to eat a lot of coconut sugar to reap even a portion of these benefits. And if you're eating that much coconut sugar, you're probably doing your body more harm than good. At the end of the day, coconut sugar is still sugar, and it's still going to provide the same amount of calories that table sugar provides with very little nutrients. To be honest, this recipe wouldn't be too different if you had to substitute granulated cane sugar instead of coconut sugar. But if you're someone who likes to eat a little bit more green, it may also comfort you to know that coconut sugar is a very sustainable option. Coconut palm trees, which are used to harvest coconut sugar, produce far more sugar per acre compared to cane sugar and use around 20% less water and nutrients in the soil to harvest that amount of sugar. So if you're someone who wants to decrease their carbon footprint and eat a little bit more sustainable, coconut sugar is an excellent option. You can replace it in any recipe with regular cane sugar. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning if you have a recipe that calls for cane sugar but want to use coconut sugar, you can use the same amount of coconut sugar in that recipe. Alright, so now our biscotti are out of the oven and we've let them cool, so now it's time to try them. Venite a mangiare!
Look at that. Oh yeah, look at those chocolate chunks. Beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's good stuff.